Well, with the new year comes a lot of New Year's resolutions, and there's a pretty popular one, Dry January, where people give up alcohol for a sober and more healthy start to the year. Popular trend giving rise to a new industry, but also leaving other businesses feeling the pinch. That's the focus of this week's Willamette Week cover story. And to break down, we are joined by Willamette Week arts and culture reporter Rachel Saslow. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So Rachel, Dry January, of course, nothing super new, but it's evolved over time. What trends are you seeing?
Yeah, so if it feels to you like everybody you know is doing Dry January, it's because it's up to about a quarter of all American drinkers take January off. And there are also a couple of copycat months like Sober October that are joining that trend. The number of participants is even higher for people in their early to mid-20s. So it's become pretty omnipresent.
So how is this impacting businesses, and what are they doing to try to keep up?
Well, I actually found I found one business that actually had to close. Their last night in business was December 31st because in part they didn't think they would make it through another Dry January because it was a traditional brewery and they just didn't have enough of a customer base to make it through such a slow month. I've talked to some wine shops that have a really slow January and just kind of have to white knuckle it in their own way to get through that month. So it has some pretty real business consequences.
And as you mentioned, some businesses are certainly feeling the pinch, but there's also a rise to a new industry.
Yeah, I think that it's just, it's a pretty big demographic shift that's happening right now. And so there are all these non-alcoholic businesses that are blossoming nationwide, but especially here in Portland. And I talked to some of those business owners who are kind of stepping in to fill this new void and this new interest in sober living that's really visible in January, but really is starting to become more and more of a thing all year round.
Earlier in the interview, you mentioned some of the other copycat months. These companies or the businesses that you talked to that feel the pinch in January, are they still feeling that later on down the year?
Yeah, a few talked about Sober October being a big problem. I think January is the big one, though. I think January already was a pretty slow month because the weather is pretty nasty and you're coming off of the holidays, so people kind of hibernate. So it's a particularly brutal month for everyone to also decide to go sober as far as the bottom lines for these businesses.
Healthy start. Okay, Rachel, thank you. We appreciate your time. You can read the entire article in the latest edition of Willamette Week on newsstands now or online at wweek.com.